Hello and welcome to Melrose Unitarian Universalist Church. Our service today is called Pandemic Losses and Learnings. Good morning and happy first weekend of spring. I am the Reverend Dr. Suzanne Intriligator. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am delighted to be the minister of this congregation. In this time of physical distancing, we believe it is an act of love to gather in this way, online, for worship. You are very welcome here among us. The Melrose Unitarian Universalist Church strives to be a spiritual community for our time, honoring diverse theological perspectives and remembering that issues of justice and equity shape all that we do. We welcome your whole self and your unique family into our worship space this morning as we build together a community of caring, courage, and hope. Please feel free to say hello in our chat box. Our host there today is Adrienne Wood. Please, Adrienne, if you will, share a link now to our welcome page on our website where folks can go to learn more about us and to sign our digital guest book. Please all do feel welcome to stay afterward for our online coffee hour. To get us started this morning, we have an announcement about our annual pledge drive from Erin Hoban Audette. Erin, are you with us?
I am. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to everyone who has already submitted your pledge. We have received just under half of the pledges we're hoping to receive from the congregation, and yet we're already 2/3 of the way to our dollar goal of $210,000. So thank you so much to everyone who's already submitted. If you haven't submitted yet, please do so by next Friday, the 26th. This will allow the Finance Committee to determine whether they'll be able to fund all of the requests next year that they've received from the board, committees, project leads, and staff. If you do have any questions this week or would like to discuss anything, I'd be happy to talk with anyone. I know Kathy Sang feels the same way, and so does Reverend Suzanne. So again, thank you to everyone for all of your support and for all that you bring to our community. Reverend Suzanne?
Hey, thanks, Erin. And I just want to point out that we have the fancy slide that we made to show our progress in the pledge drive. Josh, if you could go ahead and share that slide now, just so everybody gets a good visual on where we are. 66% of goal, 49% of our pledge units have come in. So that's 54 pledge units. And in terms of the number of dollars raised, we're at 66% of goal. So that's a great place to be. And we just ask you again, if you could please have your pledges in by this coming Friday, March 26th, so that we can announce them next Sunday at Celebration Sunday. And as you can see behind me, our beautiful community artwork quilt that the quilters made has your sun rays on it, and we're looking to collect more. There's space for plenty more. So please, when you send in your pledge, send in that yellow strip of fabric with your orange decorations on it so we can put it up there and add your ray of sunlight to our collection. So, did I mention that yesterday was the vernal equinox, the first day of spring? Hooray. And the weather is changing. To celebrate, we're looking into hosting some optional outdoor social gatherings later this spring. And I've decided to restart my outdoor office hours in plastic chairs on the front lawn here. So drop by the church this coming Wednesday between 5 and 7 p.m. if you feel like you're up for a chat, or email me to schedule another time. I'm minister@melroseuu.org. If you loved last week's Music Sunday service from Alistair MUUC and Reggie Harris, you are certain to enjoy Opening Doors, Race, Conversation, and Song, which is a new concert series sponsored by our anti-racism team and hosted by Alistair. It starts next Sunday night with special guest, the renowned folk singer Vance Gilbert, excuse me. Please mark your calendars and tell all your friends. It's going to be an event. Today's service also promises to be special. First off, to get us started in reflecting about how the pandemic has affected our lives this past year, our story time this morning comes from our high school youth group. So if you've been missing their faces and their voices and their good insights, you won't want to miss the story today. Second, later on, instead of a long sermon from me, today we'll have a shorter homily in order to make space after that for a ritual, a way of commemorating together the pandemic's 1-year anniversary, a time for sharing the losses and the learnings we've each experienced this year. So take your inspiration from our youth and let your good insights be shared among us too. Before all that, we have a testimonial this morning from our members, Jennifer Fanning and Harry Ha. Harry and Jennifer, are you here?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. Good morning. This is Harry. My wife Jennifer and I have been members of the church for going on 2 years now. We would like to share with you today about how we got here to MUUC, what the church means to us, and why we give our annual pledge. As some of you may know, I grew up in Taiwan in a Muslim family. My mother is very religious, and growing up, I attended mosque with her and my family regularly. I value the teachings given by the Muslim faith, including the emphasis on charity, justice, and peace. As a college student in Taiwan and later as a graduate student in the US, I lost touch with the practice of attending mosque. While I was a graduate student in Chicago, I became connected to the Christian faith when a friend and office mate noticed the difficult time I was having and invited me to their graduate student Christian fellowship group. Since then, I have found friendship in attending church and participating in a church community, first in Chicago and later in Austin, Texas. I value the friendships that I developed as well as the chance to know the Christian faith better. At the same time, it is important to me not to leave behind the culture and the value in which I was raised.
In 2018, after 2 years of long distance between Austin and Chicago, Harry and I moved to Boston to start our lives together and our careers. It was important to us to find a church that shared the values we hold, including the inherent worth of all people, equity and compassion, and the search for truth. The UU principles embody the values we hope to practice in our daily lives. Moreover, this community has been so welcoming to us, and we've enjoyed getting to know you better over these past 2 years. This is truly a warm community of caring people, and we have very much appreciated you. This past year has turned all of our lives upside down. The church has been a stabilizing presence in our lives. In these challenging times, I've been inspired by the commitment and creativity of Reverend Suzanne, Tara, the choir, and the congregation to preserve this community, albeit at a distance.
I'm also very grateful to have been invited to participate in a church as a member of the property committee, safety committee, and trustees. I have learned a lot from these experiences and feel grateful to be able to give back to the church a small part of what I have received. This year, Jennifer and I are pledging $1,200, an increase of 18% over last year. We are inspired by the work being done by the Immigration Committee, Religious Education, and all of the church staff and the volunteers. This is why we value this church. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer and Harry. We are so glad that you are with us after your world travels and all your time apart. I'm so happy that you've made your home here and with us. Thank you for sharing so much this morning. And now it's time for our weekly ritual of greeting, where we take a moment to switch to gallery view and scroll through the windows to see who is here and to say hello. Please go ahead and give a wave or a virtual hug to all of your friends at church. Hi, everybody. Hi. Oh, there's lots of good smiles this morning. Hi, everybody. Everyone's lighting looks brighter. The sun is coming in. We may have survived this very long, weird winter. Hello, good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. Thanks for making time for church. And now let us move forward into today's worship service. Today and all this month, we are marking together 1 year of pandemic, 1 year of staying home, 1 year of weathering this global crisis apart and together. The goal today is not to wallow, but to honor, to commemorate, to allow and to feel our sorrow and our grief together in this sacred hour, so that we might move through it and release it, letting it flow away from us so that new growth can take place. We start today where we must start, with the number 500,000. 500,000 COVID deaths in this country alone. How do we even imagine that number, envision it, wrap our minds around it? What does it even look like? It turns out that my colleague, the Reverend Peter Friedrichs of Media, Pennsylvania, had been pondering the exact same thing. So he made a video for his congregation about that number. And he set it to some rather upbeat music, which might at first seem a little odd to you, but I invite you to stick with it. I think that it becomes a really powerful way to begin to answer the question, how do we measure this past year?
$525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments, oh dear. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee, in inches, in miles, in laughter and strife. In 525,600 minutes, how do you measure a year in the life? How about love? How about love? How about love? Measuring love. Seasons of love. Seasons of love.
525,600 minutes, 525,000 journeys to plan, 525,600 minutes. How do you measure the life of a woman or a man?
In truths that she learned, or in times that he cried, in bridges he burned, or the way that she died.
It's time now to sing out, though the story never ends. Let's celebrate, remember a year in the life of friends. Remember love, love.
You got to remember the love. You know that love is a gift from up above. Share love, give love, spread love. Measure your life in love.
Seasons of love. Seasons of
Measure your life in love.
One person lost for every minute of last year. Hold on to that if you can. I call us to worship this morning with these words by the Reverend Sharon Wiley. It is okay to be tired of change. It is okay to be tired of everything different. Okay to feel weary of resiliency and wholeness and learning and growth. And okay to yearn simply for rest. It's okay to be grouchy and unsatisfied, and all the ordinary human ways of being that we are. Let this morning be a reminder that you are loved. Let our time together soothe what is restless within you. May you be comforted in knowing that whatever you are feeling today and other days, you are not alone. You are never alone. Come, let us worship together. Now, with UUs everywhere, I light the symbol of our faith, the flaming chalice. This morning, our chalice lighting reading will be given by Stacy Babb Weinberg, who is a very active member of our community engagement team. Stacy, go ahead.
Thank you. This is We Renew Our Commitment by Reverend Suzelle Lynch. Each time we light the chalice, we renew our commitment to our Unitarian Universalist faith. With the spark of a match, we make it new again, as fresh and surprising as the first day we encountered this spiritual community and realized we were home.
Thank you, Stacy. Wonderful. And now I'm passing over to our music director, Tara Tresner-Kirsch, who will introduce the opening hymn.
Good morning. Our opening hymn this morning is Comfort Me. You'll notice that this video is from almost exactly a year ago from our second online worship service. Please join me in singing.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
Now let us join together in the words of our covenant, followed by the song of aspiration. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. This is our great covenant, one with another and with our God.
From that dwell below the sky.
for our story. Gather around your devices, and I hand over now to our DRE, Katie Campbell.
We used to like be able to like visit relatives and loved ones a lot more, like my grandparents, but since like they're pretty high risk, we've kind of lost
Hey,
that
Josh,
ability.
I think Katie had
And
an
like we still talk on the phone with them. We used to like
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry, Katie had an introduction for this. She wanted to introduce it. Katie, are you here?
I am.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Our high school youth group meets using Zoom about 3 times a month on Sunday evenings. This past year, I have been greatly impressed with the resilience they have shown as our world suddenly and drastically changed. This past week, we had a conversation about the pandemic, what they've lost, what they've learned, how they felt, and they had a lot of wisdom to share. They were gracious enough to allow me to record the conversation and trusted me to edit it into something to be shown in worship today, which was quite courageous considering how deeply and vulnerably they shared. In alignment with MUUC photo policy, parents have also given permission for recordings of their children to be used. I am incredibly grateful that we have this to share with you. So thank you to the youth at our meeting last week, Adam, Julia, and Zayden. I'm so glad that we have made space to include their voices today. Enjoy, everyone.
It looks like there's a bit of a technical glitch. I'm going to give Josh a minute to see to that. It must be my fault for not letting him know that Katie was going to introduce that, but I'm so glad she did to give us some context about what this video is and what it means. Josh, feel free to interrupt me and start the video whenever you're ready. I think it must be difficult for him to be able to stop it and rewind it and get it back to the beginning.
Sorry about that. It logged me out for some reason, so I had to log back in quickly. All right.
All right, thank you.
All right, now we're all set. Sorry about that.
No problem.
we used to like be able to like visit relatives and loved ones a lot more, like my grandparents, but since like they're pretty high risk, we've kind of lost that ability. And like we still talk on the phone with them, but it's not the same as being in person, and like eating lunch with them or eating dinner with them.
Say like my senior year happened very differently. Like only half of the people are in school, so I can't go to school with a lot of my friends. And I also worked at education stations and I can't do that anymore. So those are probably the biggest losses I've had.
And I'm also a senior, so I lost most of my senior year in activities. It's just about breaking out into, getting a great group of well-rounded friends, and lost almost half of them, if not more, due to not being able to see them because I didn't think they were safe enough, or I lost time seeing other people, all this stuff. Lost my last real year as a teenager. I mean, I guess I got 18, 19 range in college, but that's really when you're an adult, I guess. So you start being less free and less able. So, I lost a good amount, but turned that around. And positives is I've been, able to improve myself a lot. And self-improvement, like I've realized is such a great thing. And like, I was never able to do it in the past. I was stuck in my routines, and very harmful ones at that, to me, that was really slowing me down, stopping me from reaching my full potential. So it wasn't until I was able to stop and like reflect and be in stasis for a while that I was able to grow and change. And I say I've been, through some things, but like, yeah, they've improved me and I've come out a lot better and more ready for this college transition than I probably would have been normally.
Yeah, I think what Zayden said kind of sparked an idea for me. I was stressed out more before the pandemic, but I feel like it slowed things down in my life and gives me more time, like to myself, more time to think about. I know what I'm trying to say, but I'm not as stressed out or anxious.
I definitely agree that I feel like a lot was taken off my plate. So I feel like that helped me be less stressed out and just like appreciate life more. Like, especially during early quarantine, I would walk my dog like every day. And it was nice to just watch the flowers grow and see just kind of nature bloom. And I feel like I got to appreciate the time more. And also, a couple other things I gained where I was able to start babysitting Allison. Shout out to Allison if you're watching. But I'm just really grateful for that. And also, like, I feel like since I had more time, I was able to build my relationship with a few of my friends. So, like, I was able to get closer to them and then, like, see them safely. So, I'm grateful for that. Like, with more free time, I've had to actually manage it better. So, I'm working on my time management skills and getting better at those. So, yeah.
How I've felt has kind of like adapted over time. Like in the beginning, I thought it was just going to be a few weeks, and it wasn't really anything. And then when I realized it was like a change in life, I was kind of more like worried and anxious about it. But now it's like this is normal, and this is the new normal. And I feel like when things get back to normal, whether that's in a few months or a year or a few years, it's gonna feel really weird and I'll have to like readapt and like everyone will have to readapt. I don't I have no idea how went to school 5 days a week, like every week. I feel like that's crazy. And like I don't understand how I got up at 6:30 every day.
I can't believe it either. Like, I can hardly get through one class a day, and I have like the easiest schedule in the world, and it's just not happening. But like, I regressed at first, right? Yeah, when it first hit, I became racked with nerves. But now, a year later, I actually improved from where before the pandemic. So I've turned my misfortune into a chance to become actually better, so that when I reemerge, my first impression will be just that much better.
No, I feel like I don't get stressed over like outside events. It's more like what's going on in my life. So I feel like since my life kind of wound down a little, I was less stressed and be able to like appreciate things more. And yeah, I guess that kind of sums it up. I mean, I do get frustrated, like, because sometimes I just want like my old life back and to be able to like hang out with my friends and see my relatives. But I feel like it's just I've kind of come to overall like understand like I can't really control everything. And so I just appreciate what I can have and can like be able to like determine my mental state off of like what's going on in my life.
You will always do more than the person next to you sometimes. And you just got to deal with that, I guess.
Like Julia said, I agree with her that it is frustrating, but like she said, there's things that you can't control and you just need to like be happy with what you can control and be content with what you can't control.
It's like the last year that like I can like really see like everybody at like Melrose before we all go to college. And so I feel like I'm really missing that. But I'm trying to like make peace with it because I know it's really not worth it to like spend my mental energy being upset over that. But like it's just something that I know I'll miss. And I'm really hoping that this summer, like with everybody being vaccinated, it can return to like somewhat normal what it had been.
Thank you, Julia, Zayden, and Adam. And thank you. Thank you to Katie for putting that all together. So many beautiful insights. I love that, we can only control what is ours to control, and everything else we need to let go. Now we come to that part in our worship service that we set aside for prayer and contemplation. To enter into this time, first we'll join together in our centering song, which is related to our monthly theme. For March, the theme is commitment, and our song is From You I Receive. Then we'll sit together in a few minutes of shared silence. After that, we'll speak to one another of our joys and sorrows, and I will lead us in a prayer. Please now settle into your chair, breathe deeply, and join in our centering song.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
Every week we share a ritual with one another. We speak the personal milestones of our lives, our joys and sorrows, so that we might bear witness to one another and grow together as a beloved community. Later on in the service, we'll be sharing about our losses in this pandemic year and what we've learned. For now, let us focus just on the joys and sorrows, the milestones of this week, and let us be brief if possible. If you have a sorrow to share today, please type it into the chat box and I will read them aloud. From Gail Maynard, a candle of sorrow and concern for my cousin Jonathan, who has just been admitted to hospice. From Florence, a candle of love and hope for my dear friend Dorothy, who is dealing with a difficult diagnosis. From Marie McQuaid, a candle of concern for my 79-year-old mom who lives in San Francisco. She walks a lot in the city, and now, in light of attacks on elderly Asians, she doesn't feel safe doing so. Do we have any other sorrows this morning? One last, from Barbara and Eric, a candle of concern for our friends who are going through many losses and challenges over the last few weeks. Let us take a moment together to hold all these sorrows, those spoken and unspoken. Let us fill our hearts with compassion for all those who are hurting. Let us reach out with a kind word and a helping hand. I now light one candle as a beacon of care for all the sorrows, spoken and unspoken, today. Now I ask for all the joys that you'd like to share, type those into the chat box and I will read them aloud. From Ann Noonan, a candle of joy that our dear Rebecca M. was born on this day in history. Happy birthday, Rebecca. From Corey, a joy. My brother Jeff received his first COVID vaccine injection. Good for Jeff. From Barbara and Eric, a candle of joy for our youth group. Aren't they wonderful? From Dan Franklin, a candle of joy. My wife, Mary Beth Santorelli, got the first shot of the Moderna vaccine yesterday. Good for Mary Beth. From Florence, joy for spring. I think we can all share that today. Thank you. Do we have any other joys? From Liz and Craig, a candle of joy for our children. This morning, James was playing with his dinosaurs and Lillian was pushing her dolls around in her carriage. Their sweet souls fill our home with so much joy. For James and Lillian. From Dan Griscom, it's a beautiful day and I'm headed to Worcester this afternoon for a picnic with my son. From Camille, I'm grateful for this years of services, these worship service, bringing peace to the soul. Thank you, Camille. Any other joys this morning? All right, then I will say thank you. By sharing with us these joys, you help us remember our own blessings, and you reconnect us with all that is good and with one another. We are grateful to you. I now light one more candle to shine out our thanks for all the blessings in our lives. I have a lovely prayer to share with you today, written by the Reverend Sarah Goodman, called Prayer for Parenting in a Pandemic. Now, I recognize that not all of us are parenting in this time, so perhaps not all of us can relate to all of this prayer. At the same time, though, I think it paints a vivid picture of one piece of pandemic life, a piece that needs lifting up and supporting. And I believe that it may help many of us as a starting place, a jumping off point for painting our own pictures, naming our own pandemic losses and learnings. I invite you to take from it what you will. Allow yourself to remember and to feel, as you are comfortable, all that this last year has meant in your life. Please join me in the spirit of prayer. This is a prayer for parenting in a pandemic. A prayer for the dirty laundry and the piled up dishes. A prayer for dance parties and cuddle puddles. For long walks and improvised science experiments. For screen time as education and distraction. This is a prayer for working parents Zooming another meeting with a little face joining in. For new parents awaiting new life without support. For the single parents doing all of this alone. for parents who are on the front lines, who are essential workers, who worry every day about being away from home, about bringing something home, about holding it all together as you hold the world together. This is a prayer for the 1,000 meals you've made this year, for the 100 millionth time you've heard, "Can I have a snack?" For the 5 minutes of alone time that you can squeak out every day, for the 2, 4, 6, 60 gray hairs you've acquired so far. This is a prayer for the meltdowns, the missed naps, the many, many tears, the long distance learning homework that no one wants to do, but still somehow we feel the need to fight about. This is a prayer for wondering if they will ever fall asleep, for wondering if they will ever get up. A prayer for pretending that you're enjoying yourself while you play their favorite game. This is a prayer for all the missed milestones, for holding your child as they cry over missing their friends, missing their prom, missing their graduation, for your own tears because you can't fix this problem. And this is a prayer for all the milestones still somehow marked, the public birthday party parades, the Zoom proms, the online family celebrations of learning to walk, the first tooth, the private personal celebrations of the many ways you've watched your children grow and mature right close up this year. This prayer is for all the newly formed family bands and midday pajama-clad dance parties, for the new trampolines and the new bikes, the new play structures, new crafts, new pets. This is a prayer for bonding and breaking, for togetherness, and for too much togetherness. This is a prayer for love, for anger, for grief, for time out of time. This is a prayer for parenting in a pandemic. Amen. Now is the time for our offertory. If you are moved by our worship this morning, I invite you to donate using the orange button in the top right corner of our homepage at melroseuu.org. For March, our giving partner chosen by our choir is the Hamilton Garrett Music and Arts Academy, a nonprofit after-school program in Roxbury, Mass, that seeks to challenge inner city youth to see themselves as positive producers of culture. Half of our collection plate this month will go to Hamilton Garrett. For our offertory this morning, I have for you a very special music video, one of the very few that I have from the time before. Almost exactly 2 years ago, this song was at the center of our MUUC Sunday 2019. And I decided to do something sneaky, to sit down here in the front row and steal a sneaky video of it during the service, which we don't do, because this is one of my favorite hymns and I wanted to keep this wonderfully complex version of it by our choir just for my personal listening enjoyment. And I'm so glad I did now. Today, this video feels even more special to me because it evokes that feeling we used to take for granted, that sense of being together here in this sanctuary, of joining all our voices in both harmony and cacophony, joy and sorrow, to create a full color reflection of the complex lives that we live and share in this community. This video is about 5 minutes long. As you listen, please notice whatever feelings and sensations arise in your body. Breathe deeply and allow them to rise. This is My Life Flows On, an Endless Song, as sung by our choir on MUUC Sunday 2019. What though the tempest round me roars, I know the truth, it liveth. What though the darkness round me close, songs in the night it giveth. This past pandemic year certainly has been a tempest roaring around us, a darkness around us closing. It has shaken us, changed us, forced us to restructure our daily lives in 1,000 ways, both small and large, and we have struggled to adapt and to grieve all that we've lost and all that has changed. I know several of us lost family members and friends in this past year, some to COVID and others to other accidents and illnesses, the usual kinds. And all those losses were complicated by COVID this year. Some of us couldn't visit our loved ones, couldn't help with their health care, couldn't say goodbye, couldn't gather afterward with friends and family to hug and cry and tell stories about our loved one. Our losses were thus compounded and our grieving stifled. Many of us also suffered what's called ambiguous loss. In normal times, that phrase refers to the loss of loved ones who go missing or are estranged from us, or loved ones who suffer from dementia or mental illness, so that part of them is missing and we don't really get to say goodbye. We don't get to process the loss fully or move toward resolution in the normal way. In pandemic times, these kinds of ambiguous losses also happen, of course, and they become further complicated by COVID. And in addition to all that, the phrase ambiguous loss can be applied to many other kinds of losses. Any kind of loss, really, that we have trouble naming and processing, but we feel it just the same. For example, during the pandemic, some of us lost our sense of financial security. We lost jobs or gigs or pieces of our income stream, and maybe we also lost that piece of our identity that was connected to the job. That's a kind of loss that often goes unspoken, but still hurts and needs grieving. Many of us lost our sense of safety in this past year, that everyday ease that we had when moving through the world, going into stores and workplaces, touching things and people, just breathing the air. All of it became suspect, and that changed us. Many of us were taught that to name and to allow such grief is the same thing as wallowing in it. Many of us were taught that it is somehow shameful to name and allow our grief when or if others suffered more than we did. Can we, for a moment, question that narrative? There is no competition here, no grief Olympics. Comparing grief is not useful or helpful. Denying or suppressing your feelings doesn't actually help anyone else. In fact, it may damage other people. Each of us has a responsibility to feel our own feelings, to name them and allow them and process them. And that work is part of what we do here in church. And when we do, when we are able to put words to things like ambiguous losses, when they can be captured in words, they become less slippery and ambiguous. It becomes grief that can be held and processed and released. It can begin to move away from us and make space for something new. I have for us a ritual this morning, something like the burning ritual that we did for New Year's when we wrote down on paper the dross of 2020 and we tossed it into the fire and watched it burn. Do you remember that? Today might be a little less dramatic, but maybe just as healing. Let us hope. The idea is to name our losses and to let them go, to watch them float away from us. Our lovely music director, Tara Tresner-Kirsch, is ready to help us. She is standing in some woods near her house on the shore of the Mystic River. Tara, are you there? Tara, I was expecting you. There you are. Thank you for helping us today. Tara has in her hand some rose petals, white rose petals. As we name our losses here in our Zoom room, there we go. Oh, that's a lot of rose petals. Good. Tara will let go of the petals, release them just a few at a time onto the water, and we'll watch them gently float away from us, being carried away by the flow of time. Josh, if you could, just spotlight that. I want us to just watch that. Now, Tara's saying there's not a lot of flow in the river today. We've, for some reason, picked the stillest day, but I think we'll still get the effect. I'm going to begin by naming some of the many losses that have been shared with me. Of course, I won't share anyone's names. After a few of these, we'll open up the chat box, and if you'd like to type in your losses as you feel comfortable, we will let them go into the water. Don't worry about repeating things, just share whatever comes up for you. Names, events, feelings, and I will read them aloud without the names. I will go ahead and get us started. Our pandemic losses. Thanksgiving dinner with my loved ones. Christmas Day and Christmas dinner with my loved ones. My birthday with my loved ones. Hugs from my grandchildren. Precious time with my elderly parents. Jobs that we loved. Jobs that we tolerated. Taking my mother to her doctor's appointments. Help from others with my own parenting, from all the people who were my village, the other adults in my kids' lives. I miss dinners out with my friends. My kid lost their entire high school social life. I miss going through life without a mask. I miss being able to see people smiling. I miss being able to recognize people when I see them on the street. I miss precious time alone because I live with kids. I miss precious time with kids. My kid lost their whole college dorm experience. I miss the feeling of having my home life separate from my work life, because working from home feels like living at the office. I'm sad that I lost a friend who couldn't accept my limitations in supporting her. I missed my daughter's college graduation. I miss dance competitions. I miss adventures with my grandsons. I lost being able to see my grandparents, parents, or siblings in person for over a year. I didn't get to say goodbye to my grandmother. My daughter had a lot of challenges in being a college freshman with social distancing happening. I missed visiting with my mom in person. I missed my circadian rhythm, no pattern, no predicting when sleep will come or not. I missed getting to see my niece graduate high school with her friends. I lost being able to see my relatives in California. I missed sitting with my clients in person. I miss outings to the symphony and museums. I miss spending time with friends in person, sharing a meal and companionship. I miss going out to baseball games and concerts. I miss hugging my parents. I miss swimming. I feel a reflexive aversion to proximity to human beings. I'm developing a sensitivity to seeing other people approaching on the sidewalk from a block away. I miss that connection with and touching my clients in person. I missed saying goodbye to my mother and hugging my daughter as she grieved the loss. I miss enjoying markets and festivals and fairs and in crowded downtowns. Now I feel anxious and worried about crowds. I miss sharing our home and lives with our friends and family. I missed meeting my new niece who was born in December. I lost my job and a Habitat for Humanity trip to Thailand and seeing friends and family. I miss holding my new grandson in my arms. I miss watching our children play, carefree with their friends. I didn't get to be with my dad in person when he died of COVID. I miss having a job that is normal with a routine. I miss visiting with my son in his new home. I miss theater and music. I miss getting to see our high school students perform in the spring musical. I miss the Victorian fair and cookie booths and traveling home. I miss hugs. Thank you for your sharing. And thank you, Tara, for your help. Please, if you will, join me in a quiet moment of blessing as we continue to watch the petals float. These are our pandemic losses, made sacred by our living them, and now made shared by our speaking them here together today. May they be carried away from us on these little ripples and waves, borne away by the ceaseless flow of time. Like all things in this finite world, may they too pass away to make space for new life and new growth. Amen. And now let us turn briefly to the learnings. Many of you have been more eager to share with us the hopes that you have for our post-pandemic world, the positive pieces that you've learned during this crisis. If you would like to speak now to offer a sentence or two about your pandemic learnings, I invite you to type the word speak into the chat box and I will call on folks one at a time. You can also just type a word or two about your learning into the chat and I will read those aloud. Michelle would like to speak. Michelle, go ahead.
Oh, I don't know how to follow all that, but you know, it's been such a big thing this year to experience church and church life in this remote way. You know, as much as I miss seeing everyone in person and being in our building, I've really been pleasantly surprised and endlessly impressed with all the creativity and innovation from the staff and from all the volunteers, from every one of us. I think about how it's removed barriers and enhanced access. I think people experiencing church, worship, their faith community through a screen was once for shut-ins and televangelists. And now I think we've all had a real variety of experiences with this medium. And going forward, I think about how this works for people in a season of life, whether it's an illness or a parenting time or a work season. I think about what this means for geography. People who've moved away and maybe not found a new church home and they can still be with us. People who are away for college or, some sort of geographic distance. I think about all the new people who've been able to visit us and how maybe this was a little easier to get a taste. And, it could be a way for people, once we're in person to visit and get a peek. I think about how during coffee hour, instead of lifeguarding 3 busy boys in Parish Hall, I've been able to talk with people I've never talked to before, and that's been really really gratifying. I think about how people have been able to participate in our annual meeting, special votes, because you don't have to jump through certain hoops or hire a babysitter or leave your house. And as the year has gone on, we've reimagined and reinvented all kinds of things, fellowship activities and fundraising, rituals. And I'm just really excited and hopeful to see how in the after times we can integrate the offsite experience with our in-person experience. I've shifted that word from remote to being offsite because it's not that you're remote from the meeting or that you don't attend the meeting or the thing. You're just offsite. You're just in a different place. And I'm really grateful. That's been, I think, a big win and something to really celebrate this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And I just want to say that the church leadership is committed to keeping the option of remote church attendance, that we will somehow work out a way to have hybrid worship in the fall. So if some people are here, other people can still be joining us from home or from far away as they like. For myself, in terms of pandemic learnings, I'm hoping that maybe we as a culture have learned that we don't need to travel as much as we thought we did. Maybe I don't need to fly to conventions and we don't need to drive into work every day. And maybe this gives us a chance to give the planet a break. Jane and Chuck shared a pandemic learning. They wrote, through the necessity, oh no, that's Jean, I've missed, okay, Jane and Chuck said they are amazed at the resilience of so many of the senior high students who are persevering through their final year. Yes, our young people have definitely shown us their resilience. From Jean, through the necessity of using Zoom, I have met and made new friends in Dorchester, Mattapan, and Roxbury through the Friends of Melrose Metco. So that's a beautiful thing that's come out of this pandemic year. Does anyone else have a learning that they would like to share? Nyla says, through the words to our hymns have taken on deeper meaning for me. That's interesting. It's a different experience of worship. Speaking of hymns, maybe we should go ahead and close up. Thank you all for sharing today. Please join me in one last moment of blessing. These are our pandemic losses and learnings. Let them together show that we are capable and ready to move forward with our lives, releasing our losses and remembering our learnings, so that we pray the new normal might be stronger, richer, more just, and more fair than the old normal. Amen, and so may it be. For all these losses and all these learnings, for the complex and rich mix that is our life together and our life apart, please join me in our closing hymn, For All That Is Our Life, sung by our fabulous remote Zoom choir.
sing our thanks and praise, for all life is a gift, which we are called to use to build the common good, and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful odds that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise, for all life is a gift, which we are called to use to build the common good, and make our own days glad.
For sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks for all that is our life. Let this morning be a reminder that you are loved and you are not alone. You are never alone. Amen.